Commander Vextal's crystalline appendages clinked against his desk as he reviewed the transfer documents for the 1000th time. His bioluminescent core pulsed with shades of disbelief. Surely this was some sort of cosmic joke. The Galactic Defense Academy hadn't survived 10,000 cycles by accepting fragile species. "Bring in the human," he commanded, his harmonic voice resonating through the crystalline architecture of Fort Rigel. Sarah Chen walked into his office with a steady grace that seemed to defy the station's 2.5G environment. Most new arrivals could barely stand under the enhanced gravity, yet this human moved as if she were strolling through an Earth park. Her dark eyes scanned the room with an intensity that made Vextal's core flicker uncertainly. "Cadet Chen reporting as ordered, Commander," she said, executing a perfect Academy salute despite her unusual bilateral symmetry. "Explain to me," Vextal began, his crystalline form shifting to project authority, "why the diplomatic corps thinks sending a human to the galaxy's most elite military academy is anything but a waste of resources." Sarah's lips curved slightly, a human expression Vextal's xenopsychology training identified as amusement. "Permission to demonstrate, sir." Vextal gestured with a crystalline limb. Humans were classified as Class 3 endurance species, barely above the silicon-based crawlers of Rigel 7. This should be enlightening, if brief. Without warning, Sarah dropped and began performing what she later called push-ups, repeatedly lifting and lowering her entire body mass under 2.5G using only her upper appendages. After 50 repetitions, she stood again, breathing slightly elevated but otherwise unchanged. "That's impossible," Vextal's second-in-command, Lieutenant KRX, buzzed from his position by the door. "Our scanners must be malfunctioning. No Class 3 species could." "Your scanners are fine, sir," Sarah interrupted politely. "Humans are classified as Class 3 because our strength metrics don't match conventional testing methods. We don't have exoskeletons, natural armor, or enhanced musculature. What we do have is endurance, adaptability, and something we call determination." Vextal's core pulsed rapidly as he processed this. "The Crucible trial begins at dawn. No Class 3 species has ever survived the first phase. Are you certain you wish to proceed?" Sarah's smile widened. "With respect, Commander, I didn't come here to survive. I came here to excel." The next morning, Fort Rigel's training grounds hummed with activity. 37 of the galaxy's most promising cadets assembled for the Crucible trial, a week-long series of challenges designed to push even Class 1 species to their absolute limits. Sarah stood among them, notably smaller than the armored, chitinous, or energy-based beings surrounding her. "Begin Phase 1. Vextal's command echoed across the grounds. Immediately, the gravity increased to 3.5G. 3 cadets collapsed instantly. The others began struggling toward the first obstacle, a 1,000-meter climb up a sheer wall in the enhanced gravity field. Sarah moved. Not the careful, calculated movement of someone conserving energy, but with a fluid grace that shocked the observing instructors. She reached the wall before any other cadet and began climbing. No safety harness. No gravity assists. Just bare hands finding microscopic holes in the metallic surface. "Impossible," KRX buzzed again, his sensor arrays struggling to process the data. "Her lactic acid levels should be." "Lieutenant," Vextal interrupted, his core pulsing with an emotion he hadn't felt in centuries, wonder. "I believe we may need to rewrite our understanding of impossible." Sarah reached the top first, helped 2 struggling Arcturian cadets over the edge, then immediately began preparing for the next challenge. She hadn't even broken a sweat. In the control room, Vextal opened a secure channel to the diplomatic corps. "This is Commander Vextal of Fort Rigel. Regarding the human integration program, send more. Send all of them. The galaxy needs to see this." As the sun rose higher over Fort Rigel's crystalline spires, Sarah Chen continued to defy every limitation the Academy had established. She wasn't just surviving the impossible, she was making it look easy. And this was only the beginning. Lieutenant KRX's sensor arrays were on the verge of overload as he monitored Phase 2 of the Crucible trial. The human cadet had not only survived the first phase, she'd completed it in record time and was now helping other cadets prepare for what came next. His crystalline appendages trembled as he adjusted the environmental controls. Initiating vacuum sequence, he announced. Preparing for zero-gravity combat trials. The massive training chamber transformed into a stark battlefield floating in space. Most species struggled with the transition from crushing gravity to zero-G. It typically took hours for their bodies to adjust, even with advanced training. Sarah Chen simply pushed off the nearest wall and began moving with perfect precision through the void. How? Commander Vextal demanded, watching as Sarah expertly maneuvered between floating debris and incoming practice drones. Their species hasn't even colonized their own solar system yet. Swimming, Sarah explained through the comm system, her voice steady despite executing a complex series of maneuvers. On Earth, we train in pools to simulate zero-G conditions. The principles are similar: conservation of momentum, action-reaction pairs, fluid dynamics. A Meridian cadet, their plasma form flickering with stress, spun out of control nearby. Without hesitation, Sarah altered her trajectory, caught them with a gentle precision that wouldn't disrupt their energy matrix, and helped stabilize their form. But your species has no natural adaptation to void environments, KRX protested, his scientific subroutines struggling to process what he was seeing. Sarah's laugh echoed through the comm. With respect, sir, humans don't wait for natural adaptation. We adapt ourselves. The next challenge involved rapid pressure changes, from vacuum to crushing depths and back again. Most species required specialized equipment or biological shutdown sequences to handle such transitions. Sarah's only concession to the environment was a standard pressure suit, and she moved through the phases with an ease that left the observing instructors in stunned silence. Their bodies shouldn't be able to handle these pressure differentials, Medical Officer ZYXRA noted, her floating tentacles twisting in agitation as she reviewed the biometric data. The rapid changes in blood gas levels alone should cause unconsciousness. Humans free dive, Sarah explained between trials, helping a silicon-based cadet adjust their pressure regulators. Some of us can hold our breath for over 10 minutes and dive hundreds of meters deep with no equipment. Our bodies are surprisingly good at handling pressure changes. Commander Vextal's corps pulsed with a new color, one that hadn't been seen in Fort Rigel for generations. The shade of revelation. You've been practicing these skills for combat applications? Sarah shook her head, droplets of sweat floating around her in the low gravity. Most of these were originally survival skills, sir, or sports. Humans will turn anything into a competition or a game. We dive for fun, climb mountains because they're there, run marathons to test our limits. The revelation pulse in Vextal's core intensified. You're telling me your species deliberately seeks out adverse conditions, for entertainment? Yes, sir, Sarah replied, already moving toward the next challenge, a maze of plasma barriers that would test speed, agility, and heat resistance. We have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. KRX's sensor arrays finally overloaded, sending sparks through the control room. Their philosophy is madness, he buzzed, switching to backup systems. Perhaps, Vextal answered, watching as Sarah began navigating the plasma maze with a combination of calculated risk and intuitive grace that shouldn't have been possible for any species, let alone a Class 3. Or perhaps we've been defining strength too narrowly. As the second phase of trials continued, more alien cadets began following Sarah's example, pushing past their supposed limitations, trying human techniques adapted to their own physiologies. The training chamber became a laboratory of cross-species innovation, with Sarah at its heart, demonstrating that the impossible was often simply the untried. The day ended with Sarah Chen setting new records in 15 different categories, 3 of which had been considered theoretically unattainable. But more importantly, she had begun to change how Fort Rigel understood the very concept of potential. As she helped the last exhausted cadet from the chamber, Commander Vextal made another call to the diplomatic corps. "Update on the human integration program," he said, his core pulsing with determination. "We're going to need to completely redesign our training protocols. And send us everything you have on human sports and games. I believe we've been underestimating their importance." The lights in Fort Rigel dimmed to simulate night, but in the barracks, Sarah Chen was already preparing for tomorrow's challenges, teaching a group of fascinated alien cadets about something she called yoga. The galaxy's understanding of human capabilities was about to expand dramatically. The quantum anomaly struck without warning. Fort Rigel's crystalline architecture groaned under waves of distorted gravity that rippled through spacetime like a stone thrown into a cosmic pond. Commander Vextal's core flickered with emergency patterns as alerts flooded the command center. "All cadets to emergency stations," he ordered, his harmonic voice cutting through the chaos. "Gravitational fluctuations exceeding safety parameters. The station's structural integrity is dash." A massive surge hit, sending gravity spinning wildly from 0 to 5G and back again. Most of the alien cadets immediately activated their emergency stasis protocols, their bodies unable to cope with the rapid changes. But through the surveillance feeds, Vextal watched as Sarah Chen remained conscious and mobile. "Commander," she called through the emergency channel, her voice steady despite the gravity waves battering the station. "Permission to assist with emergency operations?" "Denied, Cadet Chen. These conditions are beyond even human endurance. The gravity fluctuations are dash." "Sir," Sarah interrupted, already moving through the corridors with practiced efficiency, using the changing gravity fields to her advantage. "Humans have been training for variable gravity conditions since our first space programs. We call it parabolic flight training. The vomit comet isn't just for astronauts anymore." KRX's backup sensors whirred in disbelief. "You deliberately simulate these conditions?" "Yes, sir. Plus, these gravity waves are following a pattern. It's like surfing, you have to feel the rhythm and work with it, not against it." Vextal's core pulsed with urgent colors as another alert sounded. "The quantum stabilizers are failing. If we don't reset them manually, the entire station will tear itself apart." "I can reach them," Sarah offered, already calculating the route through the most affected areas. "The maintenance shafts should still be accessible." "Impossible," KRX buzzed. "The gravitational shear in those sections would crush even a Class 1 species." Sarah's response came as she pulled herself into the first maintenance shaft. "Good thing humans don't believe in impossible, sir." What followed was a display of physical adaptation that would rewrite Fort Rigel's understanding of human capabilities. Sarah moved through the shifting gravity fields like a dancer, using each surge and ebb to propel herself forward. When a 6G wave hit, she braced and endured, her muscles straining but holding. In 0G sections, she navigated with the precision of a veteran spacewalker. Approaching the stabilizer core, she reported, her breathing controlled despite the exertion. "But there's damage to the control interface. I'll need help to recalibrate the quantum matrix." Commander Vextal made a decision that would later be studied in xenological academies across the galaxy. "Cadet Zyxna, your species can maintain consciousness through these conditions. Can you guide Cadet Chen through the recalibration?" The Meridian cadet's plasma form flickered with determination. "Yes, sir. But the mathematical complexity dash." "I can handle the math," Sarah interrupted, already accessing the damaged systems. "I minored in quantum mechanics before joining the academy. Just need your expertise on the alien tech." What followed was an unprecedented collaboration. Sarah's human strength and endurance kept her functional in the deadly environment, while Zyxna's advanced understanding of quantum technology guided her actions. Together, they began stabilizing the anomaly. "The human understanding of quantum mechanics is surprisingly advanced, ZYX-Na noted as they worked, their plasma form pulsing with curiosity. We had to be, Sarah replied, making another precise adjustment. When you're a species that started with sticks and stones, you learn to understand things very, very well before you try to use them. The final calibration required Sarah to hold position in a punishing 7G field while making microscopically precise adjustments. Sweat dripped upward in the shifting gravity as she worked, her muscles trembling but refusing to yield. Almost, there. She grunted. One more sequence. The stabilizers hummed back to life. The gravity waves smoothed out, returning to normal parameters. Throughout Fort Rigel, systems began returning to normal as the quantum anomaly dissipated. In the aftermath, as medical teams treated the few injuries and engineers assessed the damage, Commander Vextal found Sarah helping other cadets recover from stasis. Cadet Chen, he called, his core pulsing with a complex mixture of emotions. Your actions today. Just doing my job, sir, she replied, supporting an unsteady Arcturian cadet. Besides, Earth's gravity does weird things sometimes too. We call them earthquakes. This wasn't so different. Vextal's core flickered with what might have been laughter. You truly have an explanation for everything, don't you? Sarah smiled. Not an explanation, sir. Just experience. Humans have been surviving the impossible for so long, we've gotten pretty good at it. As Fort Rigel returned to normal operations, the story of the human cadet who surfed gravity waves to save the station began spreading through subspace channels. The galaxy was starting to realize that perhaps they needed to reconsider their definition of impossible, and their classification of humanity. The aftermath of the quantum anomaly brought unexpected changes to Fort Rigel. Sarah Chen found herself surrounded by alien cadets, not seeking rescue this time, but knowledge. The Academy's training hall had become an impromptu cultural exchange center, with Sarah at its heart. Explain again this concept of cross-training, requested ZYX-Na, their plasma form shimmering with curiosity. A dozen other cadets of various species gathered around, each struggling with exercises that humans have been doing for centuries. It's simple, Sarah demonstrated, moving through a series of fluid motions. Every species has strengths and weaknesses. Instead of focusing only on what we're naturally good at, we practice everything. It makes us more adaptable. Commander Vextal observed from his crystalline command post, his core pulsing with thoughtful colors. The human's influence was spreading through his academy like a catalyst in a chemical reaction, changing everything it touched. Show us the burpee again, called out KRX Jr., the lieutenant's offspring, their crystalline form attempting to mimic Sarah's movements. Our species was never designed for such rapid position changes, but that's exactly why you should practice them, Sarah encouraged, helping adjust KRX Jr.'s form. The more you do something your body isn't designed for, the more your body adapts. The training hall filled with the sounds of various species attempting human exercises, each modified for their unique physiologies. Plasma forms practiced controlled shape-shifting inspired by yoga. Crystalline beings worked on flexibility they'd never thought possible. Even the energy-based species were attempting new ways of manipulating their forms. I don't understand, Lieutenant KRX buzzed, watching his offspring attempt another burpee. Our species evolves through careful genetic manipulation over generations. This exercise concept seems inefficient. Sarah suggested, helping a silicon-based cadet with their form. Maybe. But it's versatile. Humans don't have the luxury of waiting for evolution. We have to adapt now, in real time. The breakthrough came during afternoon training. An Arcturian cadet, attempting a modified pull-up, suddenly found themselves stuck in an awkward position. Their exoskeleton creaked dangerously under the strain. Without hesitation, Sarah called out, ZYX-Na, plasma support. KRX Jr., crystalline brace. Moving as one unit. The response was immediate and coordinated. ZYX-Na's plasma form provided cushioning support, while KRX Jr.'s crystalline structure offered a stable brace. Together, they safely lowered the Arcturian to the ground. Commander Vextal's core pulsed with revelation. "You've been teaching them more than just exercises, haven't you, Cadet Chen?" Sarah nodded, helping the Arcturian adjust their form for another attempt. "On Earth, we have a saying, teamwork makes the dream work. It's not just about individual strength, it's about combining our abilities in new ways." The concept spread through Fort Rigel like wildfire. Training sessions became collaborative experiments in cross-species cooperation. Traditional exercise routines were reimagined with input from multiple species. The rigid hierarchies of the past began giving way to something more fluid, more adaptive. "But this goes against centuries of military doctrine," protested one of the senior instructors, their energy form flickering with concern. "Each species has their designated role based on their natural abilities." "With respect, sir," Sarah replied, demonstrating a complex movement pattern that incorporated aspects of 3 different species' natural movements. "Humans learned long ago that the most effective teams aren't built on rigid roles, but on understanding and adapting to each other's strengths." The training hall became a laboratory of innovation. Plasma forms learned to provide dynamic support for crystalline beings during high-gravity exercises. Silicon-based cadets discovered they could enhance their natural durability by incorporating human flexibility techniques. Energy beings began experimenting with new forms inspired by human martial arts. Commander Vextal watched as his academy transformed. The quantum anomaly had been a crisis, yes, but its aftermath was becoming a revolution. In the past month, overall performance metrics had improved by 47%. More importantly, the injury rate during advanced training had dropped by 82%. "Cadet Chen," he called out, his core pulsing with a complex mixture of pride and amusement. "The diplomatic corps is demanding updates on your human integration protocols. They want to implement them across all galactic military installations." Sarah looked up from where she was helping a group of cadets coordinate a complex multi-species training routine. "Sir, with respect, these aren't really protocols. This is just humanity. We've always been best at bringing people together and finding new ways to solve problems." As if to emphasize her point, the training hall erupted in cheers as the group successfully completed their routine, a beautiful synthesis of plasma flow, crystalline precision, and human adaptability. "Perhaps," Vextal mused, his core glowing with the color of hope, "that is exactly what the galaxy needs." The graduation ceremony at Fort Rigel looked nothing like it had in its 10,000-year history. The traditional rigid formations had given way to mixed species groups, each demonstrating the revolutionary training techniques that had become known across the galaxy as the Chen protocols. Commander Vextal stood before the assembled graduates, his crystalline form radiating with pride as he addressed not just the cadets, but the hundreds of diplomatic observers who had come to witness this historic moment. One standard galactic year ago, his harmonic voice resonated through the chamber. "We believed we understood the limits of what was possible. We had categorized, classified, and contained every species' potential within neat, predictable boundaries." His core pulsed with amused colors. Then humanity arrived. Sarah Chen stood at attention among her fellow graduates, her presence a living testament to the changes she had inspired. Around her, plasma forms flowed in perfect harmony with crystalline structures, while energy beings demonstrated controlled transformations that would have been deemed impossible just months ago. "The Chen protocols," Vextal continued, "are not merely a training regimen. They represent a fundamental shift in how we understand potential itself. Human adaptability, combined with their inexplicable drive to push beyond established limits, has revolutionized our approach to military training." Lieutenant KRX, whose initial skepticism had given way to fierce advocacy, displayed holographic data showing the unprecedented improvements in cadet performance. "Across all species, we've recorded an average 312% increase in adaptability, a 289% improvement in crisis response, and perhaps most importantly, a 527% enhancement in cross-species cooperation. Sarah listened as the statistics rolled on, remembering the struggles and breakthroughs that had led to this moment. The quantum anomaly that had nearly destroyed the station had instead become the catalyst for its transformation. But perhaps, Vextal's tone shifted, his core pulsing with solemn colors. Our greatest mistake was not in underestimating human physical capabilities, but in failing to understand their greatest strength. He turned to face Sarah directly. Cadet Chen, step forward. As Sarah approached the crystalline podium, Vextal produced a small device that projected a shifting hologram of Earth. Humans evolved on a planet that should have killed them 1,000 times over. Instead of developing specialized adaptations, they developed something far more powerful, the ability to adapt itself. The hologram shifted, showing scenes from human history, cave paintings giving way to spacecraft, stone tools transforming into quantum computers. They turned their weaknesses into strengths, their limitations into challenges to overcome. But most importantly, they never stopped believing that the impossible was simply tomorrow's reality. Sarah stood tall as Vextal announced her new assignment. She would remain at Fort Rigel, not as a cadet, but as the Academy's first human integration specialist, tasked with expanding the Chen protocols across the galaxy. The Galactic Defense Force has existed for millennia, Vextal concluded, his core blazing with determination, but today marks the beginning of a new era. Today, we stop defining species by their limitations and start exploring their potential. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah found herself surrounded by her fellow graduates, beings of crystal, plasma, energy, and forms humans had no words to describe. Each had their own story of transformation, of discovering capabilities they never knew they possessed. You know, KRX Jr. buzzed excitedly, their crystalline form showing the impossible flexibility they had achieved. There's another human saying I've grown fond of, the sky's the limit. Sarah smiled, watching as the next generation of cadets arrived, their eyes wide with possibility. Actually, she corrected gently, humans abandoned that saying when we reached the stars. Now we say, ad astra, to the stars. Because for humanity, there are no limits. Commander Vextal, overhearing this exchange, felt his core pulse with the color of revelation one final time. The galaxy had classified humans as Class 3 because they lacked the obvious advantages of other species. But in doing so, they had missed humanity's true power, the ability to turn any disadvantage into an opportunity, any failure into a lesson, any boundary into a challenge. As Fort Rigel's 3 suns set on this historic day, casting prismatic rainbows through its crystalline spires, the galaxy's most elite military academy stood as a testament to a simple truth: the impossible was not a destination, but a temporary obstacle on the road to what comes next. And humanity, it seemed, had been born to show the way.